to my new channel. This is the Real WebMD here with my first ever video. I know what you're all thinking. What a horrible name. You must be a horrible person. Yeah, I'm sorry about the name. I couldn't resist. Uh, so this channel will be about is I will be going on the subreddit called AskDocs. I'll leave a link to that in the description of this video. And I'll be looking at some questions some people are asking physicians, and if I find anything interesting or anything that could be helpful to others, I'll ask for permission from the after answering their questions, I'll ask for permission to post about that particular case. And if I can get their permission, then I'll talk about it on this channel. I'll try to make a video every week or two every week. I don't know. Let's see where this takes us. Also, apologies for the really bad sound quality. I don't have a professional mic nor a professional camera. That's why I'm not recording myself. If this takes off and people seem to respond well to this, then maybe I will invest into that. Um, yeah, so that's it. I'm gonna just jump right into it. We have two cases today, and I'm gonna talk about them now. The first case was submitted by someone's boyfriend about her, a 19-year-old female with a fever of 40.3 who has had a high fever, severe vomiting, and a headache. She tested negative for COVID, and the OP says she seems really out of it. So when I saw this, the first thing that I noticed, let me walk you through my thought process when I'm going through these cases on AskDocs. I'm looking first of all for red flags. So if I see a red flag, then immediately send that person to the hospital. So here there are three red flags. The first one is a fever of 40.3. That's pretty high. That's a red flag. The second one is severe vomiting. That's also a red flag. And the third one, and the most important one here, and the main reason I sent them to the hospital, or at least I asked them to go to the hospital in this case, was she seems really out of it. When they said that, it ticked off alarm bells in my head. So I answered and I said, "What do you mean by out of it? If you feel like she might be confused, drowsy, difficult to arouse, go straight to the emergency department." And they answered and said it's a struggle to get her to stay awake for longer than a minute, but she said she just needs to sleep it off. So at this point, this patient is drowsy, maybe a bit confused. Yeah, those alarm bells are getting louder. Have you noticed a rash anywhere? Does she have any neck pain or stiffness? At this point, I'm already thinking of meningitis because of the headache, the fever, the really high fever, and the drowsiness. And these are symptoms of meningitis that I'm asking about. And they replied saying, no rash that I can see, and her neck was sore yesterday morning. So I told them, listen, if she can't take in fluids, she won't get better, especially with the vomiting that she said was severe. And I'm also worried about meningitis. Please call an ambulance. And they actually did, and they went to the hospital, and it actually turned out to be meningitis. How to catch such cases, when to refer to the hospital, when is it an emergency and you need to go to the hospital. And there are a lot of caveats, but generally, in medical cases like this, the main thing you have to look out for are, first of all, how is the patient in general? So if you've got someone who is usually energetic and jumping all over the place and suddenly they're asleep and they're very difficult to arouse, I mean, that's a huge red flag, and that's someone you need to rush to the hospital with. I mean, imagine yourself on the worst flu you've ever had in your life, and someone comes and tries to talk to you. I mean, okay, you might not want to talk to them, but if they force you to talk to them, you would. You're not dying, you're not, I don't know, you don't have a, you're fine, you can talk. So basically here, when they said that she's really out of it and she's not able to talk to them for more than 1 minute, this is someone who is not okay. So that's number one. The two here also is the vomiting. So dehydration is very important, and um, it really leads to deterioration very quickly, especially in the elderly and in the children, so in the two extremes of age. So that's the second thing to look out for, the dehydration status of the patient. So if the patient is not able to take in fluids, not able to retain the fluids that they take in, or losing way too much fluid than they're taking. That's the third thing. And usually I would say for a fit and healthy adult, I would say 1.5 days to 2 days of being dehydrated like that is enough for them to warrant hospital admission. For the elderly and children, I would say half a day to 1 day, and then you come straight to the ER. That's my advice. And other things to look out for, like a fever that doesn't go away, pain that doesn't go away even after taking pain meds. Um, Stuff like that, I'm not gonna go into all of them right now. I just want you guys to know about the main things to worry about, and hopefully in the future, if we find more cases, we will talk about them. As for meningitis, most people, I'm sure a lot of you know what meningitis is, but basically it's inflammation of the meninges of the brain. The meninges are the covering of the brain, and so meningitis can be caused by several things: bacterial, fungal, viral. Sometimes it can be caused by autoimmune diseases. It can be caused by iatrogenic things, toxins, stuff like that, parasites. But mostly it's going to be bacterial. Most of the time it will be bacterial, especially with a fever of 40. I mean that's 99% bacterial, and that's life-threatening. So don't play around with meningitis. We don't play around with meningitis. We go straight to the hospital. We start antibiotics immediately. Sometimes even before we can get a culture. That's how crucial it is. Our second case for today is an 18-year-old male from the UK who has been having difficulty swallowing for 6 years. Um, they say that they're having a lot of pain in their throat, chest area. Food feels like it's getting stuck for minutes sometimes, struggling to speak, salivating when it happens, and vomiting sometimes. They talk about it happening with solid and liquid foods, and that bread particularly makes it worse. Um, and they say that nothing seems to be helping, neither swallowing or chewing a lot, swallowing smaller pieces of food or chewing a lot. So they're asking what it was. I replied, uh, first of all, it sounds very much like an esophageal spasm. For sure, it's an esophageal issue. Whether it's a spasm or not, that's up for debate. But this sounds like spasms. And the reason is that it happens intermittently and not um, it's not always there. So it seems like they are able to eat sometimes and are choking other times. Otherwise, they would have seen a doctor a long time ago or have died of hunger. So that's why it makes me think of esophageal spasm. If it was something that had just started happening in 3 months or 4 months ago, I would have thought of other diagnoses. But because it's been happening for years now, esophageal spasm, which is mostly intermittent, is the most likely diagnosis. Um, Esophageal spasm is basically when the muscles of the esophagus spasm at the wrong time. So the muscles of the esophagus are supposed to work in a specific way as to make the food go down. So the muscles before the bolus of food should contract, while those distal to the bolus of food should relax. And this should happen in a wave-like manner so that the food goes down in a wave-like manner, right? But sometimes, for some reason, the muscles just spasm and refuse to relax, and this is what's most likely happening with this patient. Um, so, uh, the reason why this happens is not really well known. It's postulated that it's most likely due to problems with the signaling inside the cells of the esophagus. I'm not going to go into that right now, but I will say that there are a lot of treatments for it. There are some medications that can be given, and if that doesn't work, they sometimes even do Botox injections, um, and that relaxes the esophagus because Botox would relax and paralyze the muscles, and that way they wouldn't spasm. Um, the way they diagnose this usually is an endoscopy where they put a scope down the mouth of the patient and they look at what's going on just to make sure there's nothing serious or bad. And then a barium swallow can also be useful. And sometimes you might not even have any results on either of them. And actually, that's one of the main ways to diagnose esophageal spasm is that you might not have any results because it's intermittent. So, so yeah, a trial of medication would be needed for that. So basically that's it. It's not really serious, but the problem with this disease is that with this condition is that sometimes it mimics cardiac issues. A lot of times patients come with chest pain, very severe chest pain, and you're worried about a cardiac attack, a heart attack, but um, but it turns out to be everything checks out well, and it's esophageal spasm. So yeah, I hope this was informative and fun. I know it might seem a bit dull. I'll try to be better in the future. Um, I'm only gonna get better at this video making thing. I'm still new to it and I barely have any time to do it. Anyway, if you like this and you want to see more, you can subscribe so you can get updates whenever I post a video. You don't have to, but I mean, you'll get the updates so you can learn more. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. I'll try my best to reply. And if you have a specific case you want to ask about, you can link that in the comments as well, no problem. Have a nice day and stay real.